Hello everybody, my name is Gene Allen, and this is the uninhabited island where Amelia Earhart is thought to have diverted to and landed in 1937, and then later perished. But to date, there's no proof of that. Now, I found some objects on the island that resemble her Lockheed Electra in both shape and size. This is the short version of my first video that discusses everything I found. You can see that in a link below. It runs about 25 minutes. In this video, I'm just going to discuss the two most identifiable objects, which is the tail and the fuselage, located where you see the pin. Now I'm going to call them tail and fuselage as if that were fact. It isn't. This is just evidence that needs a better picture is what it needs. So why hasn't this been found before? Now I'm going to go up here to the upper left corner and go back in Google Earth to the year 2007, and here's what it looked like. See, a lot more vegetation. And here's 2014, and here's 2014 again, and here's 2020. So as you can see, not as good quality, and also a lot more vegetation. There we are back 2024, and this is what we're going to look at. So these two objects, if you can see here, the beach, and they're about 200 feet inland. I presume the plane landed on the beach, and eventually a gust of wind picked it up and flung it inland. It's broken in two pieces. This side over here is the fuselage, and this brightly blown out overexposed area is the tail. As you can see, the tail is orientated 90 degrees to the fuselage, and there, you'll see later, there appears to be a big old tree right here. So I guess when the wind picked it up, it hit this tree sideways and broke its back and broke off the wings. Wings are not attached. So the coordinates are up above, and there's a link below to a Google KMZ file that you can download and see exactly where these things are yourself. All right, folks, here's an extreme close-up of what you were just looking at, and yeah, it's fuzzy and blurry, I get it. I looked at this for days and days, and I didn't see anything until I stopped looking for what I was expecting and just started making sense of what I was seeing. Now, if you look down here in the lower left corner, there's the Google Earth scale, 12 feet. So that shows you how much we're zoomed in. So don't expect to see an Electra here the way you remember it looking. It's torn apart, possibly from being blown in off the beach by a gust of wind, and it's wrapped itself around this tree maybe. I think that's probably an old tree. And the wings, the fuselage is broken in half by the tree. The forward half of the fuselage is here, and the tail section is over here, and we'll come to that in a minute. Now, often in these satellite pictures, there are objects like this here that confuse you. Okay, I think that's a palm tree, or the shadow of a palm tree. Okay, so try to ignore that. That may be a bird. There are millions of birds on these islands, in the Phoenix Islands group. All right. So here's the outline of the fuselage, just to help you out a little bit more. And try to ignore this for the moment, although it could be the most important part of all, and we'll come to that a little bit later. Now, I'll give you a little help here in visualizing what you're seeing. This is a 3D overlay to help you visualize the orientation and angle you're seeing it at. And we're going to work on this for a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to point out some of the features of this object. Missing this intersection of the fuselage. Possibly it's been peeled off, some of it right here. It's broken in half right here. So this shadow would be the inside of the cabin. There's the wing is detached, but there's maybe some sheet metal right there. Let's put this back in. You can see where the wing would be. That would be part of that. This dark area here would be the cockpit window. I'll put it back, see where it's at. See how that fits perfectly. It's probably missing altogether by now. Now this piece here is really important because we can tie this exactly to where it's at on a real Electra. As I see it, it's a piece of sheet metal from the fuselage that's been peeled off. You see a curving line here, ragged edge up there, and another parallel curve over here. It's casting a shadow and has a bright light flare there. Let me show you where I think that's at. Here's a real Electra. Beautiful, huh? And there's the piece I'm talking about. It's that piece, that panel right there. It's still attached at this double row of rivets. And you can see, that's my crude artwork there of how it's been peeled upwards and is reflecting the light. Here's another view of an Electra from behind, same Electra from behind. I think this is all one panel here, and it's just got a row of rivets attaching it. Not sure. Maybe these are two different panels here. If you measure this dimension in Google Earth, it measures 1.7 feet roughly. And that's pretty close to what one of those panels should be. All right, folks, I'm going to move over here to what I was calling the tail earlier. Now, I know it's a big white blurry splotch. And that should have been my first clue, and I missed it completely because you just don't see big white blurry splotches like this anywhere else on the island. I was focused on the area over here that we talked about earlier that I think is the fuselage. And that kind of begs the question is, well, if that's the forward fuselage, where's the tail? Maybe this is the tail, and I should take a closer look. And if you look here, you'll see what I saw first, maybe a very faint half oval. It would be one of the rudders, and another less distinct oval over here. All right, let's bring in the model to give you an orientation of how I think this lines up. Okay. Again, very blurry oval there. Now, why is this so blown out? Well, if it's bare aluminum, it's going to be reflecting the sun pretty brightly, so it's probably just grossly overexposed. Here's a real airplane. And you can tell by the model, let's bring that back in. This model is not quite right. This horizontal extension here does not go that far, and the way the horizontal stave attaches to the fuselage is a little bit different, but close. By the way, this is an actual last flying model of the Electra. It's in the Czech Republic, and there's a link down below if you want to check this out. It's a very interesting story. Now let's point out a couple of things. There's not much here, and I wouldn't, if this is all I had, I wouldn't be mentioning this because by itself it's pretty vague. But because of its proximity to the forward fuselage over here, it's very significant. First off, these are the distinct and unmistakable trademark of the Electra, these twin rudders here. And if you notice, there's a faint line right there, and on the other one too, even fainter. That exists on the real airplane. That's the rudder hinge line, and it's just slightly forward of the peak. All right, maybe you can see it here. Rudder hinge line just a little ahead of the peak. And if you'll notice the coloration here, the gray area here is not quite like the white terrain. This is probably terrain here. This is typical color. You see a lot of this all around this part of the island is this coloration. And again, remind the palm tree here. All right, one last thing before we wrap this up on this object. Excuse my poor graphic arts work here, but I've tried to just roughly outline where the tail would be, and that's kind of where you see the grayish aluminum color here. But it appears to be lying on white terrain like sand. You see a lot of this in the area. That's sand, no doubt, or something. You see a lot of light colored terrain. And I just want to point out that, you know, this is one of the reasons this is so difficult is if it's gray aluminum lying on white sand, that's about as camouflaged as you can get. So to wrap this up, here's an overview on Google Earth, zoomed out some. Down in the bottom left corner here is the beach, about 200 feet inland, is what I first talked about, what I think is the fuselage, forward fuselage, broken in half, tail sitting right here. I didn't talk about this, it's a wing. It's in my other video, along with some other objects I found in the area. And like here, for example, there's something going on here that looks man-made, but I'm not sure what that is. So thank you for listening, everyone. I hope we find it.